Oh, well, that's not where I expected to end up. Let's try that. Well, hello, beautiful people. Welcome to 2026. This is going to be a very interesting year this year. I think we're going to find a whole heap of things are going to be happening on the crypto front, also in general finances around the world, not to mention, of course, all the other bits and pieces for the various freedom movements and how much the government of our time, and I did say that right, government of our time wants to try and restrict us and our freedom of speech and so on. So I am traveling alone tonight. The wonderful Mark has still requires this extra weekend. He's got family stuff that he's doing. So he sort of suggested he'd be back next week, which will be wonderful because we could really do with his insight. Generally speaking, because me presenting by myself, so I'm much better when I'm with a partner or interviewing people. So where are we going today? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about real world assets, or RWA, which is one of the other fields in the crypto market that is going to be probably running forefront for quite some time. We're going to have a look at that. We're going to talk a little bit about that and various other bits and pieces along the way. I suppose I should really put the chats up so I can see what's going on. Hey, Pete, welcome in. It's nice to know we've got at least one viewer. I apologise. This was supposed to happen last night, but my body said after being up for 24 hours, "Now, see you later, you're going to bed." So I went to bed and didn't wake up in time. So that's my apologies, and that's why it's happening tonight. All right, so let's just bring a little bit up what I've managed to pick out from a couple of things. So this is some comments that have appeared up in the cryptocurrency section of my X profile. So I thought I might just bring them up and play them to you. So we'll just add that to the stage. We'll make it full stage and we'll go ahead and play these. Hopefully the sound will come through.
I love the idea of innovation. The money center banks have been sitting on their hands for years, crapping on the crypto industry, but it's not about Bitcoin. Nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's digital payment systems. That's the potential. That's the amazing opportunity we have here. Now, the reason that will be important and why we'll get price appreciation on Bitcoin is the minute that happens, it will signal the move to the next act, the Market Infrastructure Act. And why that matters to everybody in this room is we will finally determine, is Bitcoin a commodity or a security? And when that is determined and regulated, Katie bar the doors, $1 trillion will come and index that asset. Let's all hope that happens while we're all alive here. Anyways, thank you very much. I love the idea of innovation. The money center banks have been sitting.
So hopefully that's going to stick me down in the bottom corner. Hopefully that came through. Pete, did you actually hear that audio? Is that there? Just give us a thumbs up, mate, if you could. That would be great. Want to go down to the next one, which is this gentleman here, which we will play.
And here it is. And whether or not it's going to take off really big is going to be according to that 10-year, 2-year. Okay, so you got to pay attention to that chart. But we had 4 signals, 4 explosive pumps. The 5th one is here right now, okay, at the end of 2025. And no one believes it. The crowd's quiet, but the signal is pretty loud. The breakout odds, well, right now, after I just went over, they've been the highest they've been in weeks. So that's what we got. That's today's chart of the day, considering that I went over and bloviated all about those other things. And here it is. And whether or not it's going to take off,
Okay, so I actually had to mute my microphone, guys, because I'm not wearing headphones or anything today. So sorry about that, but obviously that worked. So once again, that's a second one that's suggesting that it's going to be taking off this time, which is wonderful. Let me just get rid of the malware bytes thing from up there. And the third one is done by Vivek Sanders. So Rand Paul is also out there as well. So let's see what he has to say.
And we know that the TGA is going to be drained and the QT is going to finish and the Chinese are increasing their balance sheet. and we got regulatory changes coming, and we got rate cuts coming, blah, 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 blah. And the ISM, the business cycle, follows that. So the next thing for the business cycle is to go higher. Business cycle going higher means we'll have money in our pockets. It goes into risk assets, and that increases the price of crypto. It's not that complicated, but nobody wants to believe it because you're looking at 5-minute charts and scratching your nuts, wondering what's going on. And we know.
I like the last bit where he says scratching your nuts. That's very, very interesting on that. So we'll just take that off of there, put us back up. So very interesting in that. Welcome the other couple of people who've come in. I'm glad that we managed to sort that out. So part of what we're going to be talking about today is called real world assets. And, what are real world assets and how do you deal with them when you're talking about crypto and various bits and pieces? I mean, there's a lot of discussion in that. The idea of a real world asset is that you tokenize something, say, for instance, a house or a car or a painting, and people can then buy like little shares in that painting as a token, which means they have part ownership of that real world asset. And there's a few platforms out there that sort of allow that to happen nowadays, one of which I'm going to show you, but there's some others as well that are out there. I'm just looking back on my notes here for half a second. Give me a second. These are often run on various chains like Polygon or Ethereum, etc. So they're out there. I've gone back too far. Some of the ones that are out there at the moment that are actually quite popular and doing real world asset tokens as they are is Ondo Finance, Maple Finance, Realty, which is a real estate tokenization. I'll explain a little bit about them. Market DAO, and Arvi has Horizon Markets as well. We're only going to really look into one of these at the moment, which will be Ondo Finance, and I'll show you a bit about that. But Realty is actually a marketing where you can buy shares in real estate, basically flats, units, etc. And their whole idea is that if you have tokens in that, you will actually get some returns on the actual rent that is paid by those people. That sounds like a really good idea. And you think to yourself, well, that's nice. I can't afford to buy a whole apartment building, or I can't afford to buy large shares in Microsoft, so maybe I'll buy token shares or something along that line. This sounds like a great idea in some ways of increasing sort of like your stocks or your format in those particular areas. Or oil is another one that's mentioned in there. The biggest challenge you've got with this is how do you know that the platform that you are choosing really has access to the asset? And that is one of the biggest challenges in dealing with anything in this area. So I'm going to just bring up this one. This is Ondo, right? So they basically say they have access to lots and lots of different assets, and they do these assets by effectively taking shares, if you like, or tokenizing various shares that they own, and then allowing you to purchase those tokens. Now, do they actually own the shares? That is another question altogether. I'm just trying to open up another document here. Give me half a second. So it's you sort of wonder what's going on. So this is a US-based company, but it's interesting that when you first sign on to it, there's this little process that says the assets referred to on Ondo.finance global market tokens, including Ondo's tokenized stocks and Ondo's tokenized EFTs, USDY tokens and OUSG tokens, have not been registered under the US Securities Act of 1933. As amended, the Act, or the securities or financial instrument laws of any other jurisdiction. So immediately that sort of starts to raise bells, alarm bells, and may not be offered or sold in the US, to US persons unless registered under the Act or an exemption from the registered requirements therefore is available. Global markets tokens and USDY tokens are offered and sold in the European Economic Format and the United Kingdom solely to qualified investors, so they're limiting who can buy that, and in Switzerland solely to professional clients. Other prohibitions and restrictions may apply. See important additional information below. And that actually pops up over here in this corner when you first open up this website. So it makes you wonder. But as they say here, they are building a chain. They have 10 supported chains, 150 integrated projects, yield coin market share of 80%, not quite sure what that is, and total volume limited, going through there. Now, as I went through this and looked into this further, it was interesting to note that one of the people that backs Ondo, this particular chain, happens to be BlackRock. So BlackRock is involved in this one, which makes you go, that's interesting. Do I trust BlackRock or do I, sorry, someone just come in the back door. Do I trust BlackRock? Am I going to be interested in doing anything along that line? So you go, I wonder. And here it is. Here's thousands of RWAs, real world assets on one platform. And this is some of the ones that they're talking about that they have, as you can see as we're going across here. So we'll just pick one, Intel, for instance. We'll go into Intel. And it shows us Intel, the Intel Con, $39.48. It's supported on Ethereum, Binance, and Ethereum twice. Interesting about that. On-chain address is there, so you can actually chase that address up in Explorer and have a look at it. The underlying asset name is Intel Corporation's common stock. Note the word common stock there. So that's good. I have to click out of that to get rid of it. Oh, no, it's not going to do that. Come on. My mouse is playing up a bit. So token prices, it opens at that. It's high, it's low. But if you were to go and purchase one of these tokens, how do you know that the actual asset exists in the background? That is a question. So, you need to be able to check on what those sort of things are and how do you check? Do you trust this marketplace because it's huge? Do you need to find out whether the real asset exists? Do they actually own the stocks? How do you find out all of that stuff? And that's why it takes a huge amount of digging and inquiring into actually what it is. So it's a bit of a checkmark thing here, like legal ownership of the structure. It's as a non-negotiable thing, you actually need to know if there's legal ownership of the structure, right? Who legally owns the real asset? Well, in this case, it's going to be Intel. Is it held in a bankruptcy, remote, SPV, or special purpose vehicle? And I went, what the hell does that mean? What's a special purpose vehicle? It's actually a segregation between the actual asset owner and the tokenized asset supplier, so that if the asset owner goes bankrupt, the supplier is not affected by that bankruptcy. And I thought, well, that's an interesting legal term. How does that work? Because if the asset goes bankrupt, then theoretically the tokens are worth nothing anyway. But it's so that they can't be sued by the people who own the tokens because it's a separate entity. And that's how that works. So that's a bit of a trick for the players. Do the token owners have legal claim or just exposure? It's another really good question on that. How you find out these things? Well, that's going to take a bit more investigating. How to check? Obviously, you would do that by reading the offering or the mandatorium legal docs from the website. So you would have to go through Ondo's website here, and they do have a whole heap of legal docs that they've got overview, how it's done, eligibility, investing and redeeming, markets, etc. So you can go through and start reading how all of these things actually work, right? And just on the first page, they're talking about there too tokenized assets here and here. So you need to make sure that the company is legit, obviously. You would be doing a full-on check on who Odin is, where their jurisdiction is, and already there's a jurisdiction issue there when you think to yourself they can't sell it in the US. Interesting. I wonder why. But yet they can buy stocks and stuff from the US. So that raises a little bit of a red flag for me. And it does actually, on my notes here, it says red flag token represents exposure with no legal claim. That's what I was saying before. It's an SPV, right? We have exposure to Intel. If I was to buy some Intel tokens, right? If I've got some exposure to that, then do I actually have any real legal claim against them? Or is this a really risky asset? So that can be a bit of a challenge. Real world assets must be self-custodialized by the issuer. A regulated custodian, in other words, is it being done by a bank, a trust, or a company? Is it an independent trustee, right, or a noted administrator? So does that mean, like, if someone owns a car, could they tokenize their car and sell parts of their assets into that car? Theoretically, yes, they could. Tokenized treasuries, such as Ondo here, should hold a license custodian amount. So you should be able to check the licensing of this particular company. Property titles are held by regulated trustees. So if it's like we're talking about the realty, where they do the rental options, where you can purchase into apartments, right? You can check to see whether those trustees actually have the title of the properties they're talking about. So it's about checking whether the assets are held by the project teams or not. Also, you need to look at, does a place like Odo here, do they actually have, it says transparency and closure on this page here. So do they say, right, in this page here that they have transparency and closure? And they say here, these audits are published here. They have docs.undo.audits. So if we were to go to that page, we could look at the audits that have been done. And has that audit been done by an independent third-party firm? So then you'd have to check out the independent third-party firm to confirm that those audits have been done, and that independent third-party firm actually exists, right? So it's all very much about doing the homework, doing the checking afterwards. Now, does this say that every real-world asset is an issue? No. I mean, there are some places that you can just take trust on for granted, and we'll look at one of those in Ainsley Bullion in a minute. So, because they have tokenized options as well. I will say with some caveats though. What else do we know about that? Proof of reserve. So there's various oracles around, or on-chain links where you can get proof of reserve. Now, that's actually very important because, say, in the silver or gold market that we're going to look at a little bit later in the tokenized section, there needs to be proof of reserve, as in fact that token or market is available as a reserve, or it's guaranteed by someone. And so you can do researches to find out whether that's there. Is the fund or the smart contract actually funded by any amounts, for instance? That's one of the things there. Redemption and settlement rights. Is it real? And you must be able to exit. So can you exit out of this particular option at any time? And can those assets be redeemed from the underlying asset at the value that those assets are worth? So that's yet another option there. Also, you need to make sure that your jurisdiction that you are in and regulatory factors are taken into account. So that's yet another purpose. Like clear jurisdiction in the US or Singapore or whatever is something that needs to be determined, because they have very different laws to somewhere like Australia. But even in Australia, you need to be checking that your jurisdiction is valid. All right, tokenized treasuries, etc. Now, there's a whole heap more that we can go into down here, but basically it's a reality check. Is the asset backed one-to-one? Is it audited? Right? Is it an institutional? In other words, you can check the institution to make sure it's valid. And is the institution tied in with the on-chain system that's actually there? So that's part of all of those sort of things. Now, here's some of the traps for a real-world asset. Yield that has no asset disclosure. Now, I'm going to mention a particular organization in a minute that I believe does not do that. Real estate that has no title verification. So in the real T's type situation, does that mean that they don't actually own the titles to the flats that supposedly you are buying a real world asset in? DOA controlled assets with no legal wrappers. So that means that effectively the asset doesn't have any way that you can legally come back and get at the people who's selling you the token. So while you have the advantage with real world assets of buying in on a small amount of that asset without having to spend millions of dollars, let's say you had $5,000 to spend and you wanted to pick a real world asset that would return you a bit of income. So you might choose to put that $5,000 into a part ownership of a rental property, and you would get a small amount of that rent back each week or each fortnight. That is, you don't own the whole apartment building, but you have a share in that. Or you might put a share into a painting that you're expecting is going to go over and over and over and gain in value over time. Or you might buy a part share in gold or silver. An ounce of gold is worth a fortune. So I can't afford to buy an ounce of gold, but I can buy a part of an ounce of gold, a gram or 2 or 3 or 4. So that's part of that option, right? And that's the beauty of real world assets. Could it be something that in fact could be quite useful in our systems? I believe so. Right? It can also be a major trap. Now, one of the things about major traps, and it says there, I said earlier, that how do you prove that the asset exists? This is the biggest challenge. And in my personal opinion, and this is, I'll just say, right, everything I've talked about in here is non-financial advice, right? I do not give financial advice. This is just a bit of education, entertainment. But in my opinion, there's a particular organization out there by the name of QSI that is running on the, trying to remember the chain now, XDC, right, which is running on that chain, who are saying that they have assets of certain companies that they have supposedly acquired through certain means, and they have all these wonderful non-disclosure agreements from the assets and the makers, apparently, that they can't represent, and you can go in and buy these assets supposedly with some XDC and XLM. So they make up all these contracts on the XLM network, and effectively these assets are created out of nothing, and there is no way to prove they are. You are just going by the name of that asset. And in my opinion, there's no way to validate that at all. And over time, if you watch it, you might buy 100 XLM of this asset and get 1,000 assets, and you're going to wait for this to hit its liquidity. That's the whole sale pitch. It's going to hit its liquidity. My guess is that those assets aren't real, they don't exist, and therefore the liquidity will never come. Does that mean that you've been ripped off? Effectively, yes. Can you prove you've been ripped off? Effectively, no, because they never give a time frame on when those assets will be liquid, if at all or ever. Right? So that is a big challenge to that whole system, because there's no way to validate that those assets are real or ever have been real. So if you're going to buy an asset or a real world asset in that type of format, you need to be able to check all these things. And even though they put up fancy paperwork and it looks like it might be valid or not, it's easy to put up paperwork that you can type up on your computer. So don't always trust that. You need to be able to double check the validity of the actual companies. I mean, if they say they've got shares in Elon Musk, right? They've got a whole heap of shares from Elon Musk. Did they ever purchase the shares? Where did the shares come from? Is it because of the supposed QSI movement and the what's the actual movement? I can't even think of it. I'll think about it in a minute. The old Jasara thing where everything, all the money sections are going to change. Is that all part of that? Is it real, or are they taking some of that thing? So backing a real world asset like as in QSI, if you've done that, I hope that you've been able to get some of your money back, but I would suggest not, because I checked out a couple of them and I only spent 10 XLM, but it was enough to test the environment and find out what was going on. And there was no way that I could see those prices. They would start off, you'd buy the so-called token, and all of a sudden, if you trace those tokens, and I did that, and the XLM that was relative to it, those tokens dropped massively in price, and all those tokens were shifted off somewhere else, and somebody made themselves rich on your tokens. So very, very much a cautious thing when it comes to doing that. So, and then Crunchy just says, right, I'll bring that up. That is why I'd be looking at things backed in gold or silver or something like Ripple might, right, Vince? Well, for starters, Ripple's not backed in gold and silver, but Ripple is backed by, or XRP is backed by the Ripple company. So it has a legitimate source to come back to an asset that it's involved in. So in that respect, yeah, right. But you can also buy things like tokenized gold and tokenized silver. And you'd have to say to yourself, well, why not buy the real thing? Well, you can do that too, right? In fact, that's probably the best option. But if we were looking at buying tokenized gold or tokenized silver, how can we do that and trust that we're actually doing that with a valid company? I mean, you can go and buy gold or silver on eBay if you want, and you might find that it's not really gold or silver. When you get it there, it looks silvery until you put a magnet on it and it slides down really fast, which is something that if you watched Carl's show the other night, you would have seen. But how do you know that something's gold and silver, or a token that you buy for gold and silver? How do you know that that actually exists? So therefore, you need to start looking at who is supplying the gold and silver, and how did you get there in the first place, or the tokens for that. And surprisingly enough, if we go to, and let me bring this up and stick me back in the bottom corner, there I am. This is Ainsley Bullion, and they have a gold and silver standard website that they've got. Now, the links for this are down in the, I think I put the links for this one down below. This is their tokenized silver or standard. So you can actually purchase a gram of gold or a gram of silver. Now, why did I choose Ainsley in particular? Well, one, we know they exist. We've worked with them through Voice of Freedom. And we know that they do tokenization. It's written on the bottom of all of their newsletters. So now I'm happy because I know that they will guarantee that any tokens that I buy specifically, they will back. So that's the first start of the first process. And you can look through here, they talk about the stability, the transparency of it, the transfer, the redeemable section of it. how you can redeem it, right? Gold and silver standards versus other investments. So in here, gold and silver to physical bullion, you have full ownership. The bullion vault is insured in Australia, so that part of it's concerned. So we're talking about the standard golds and silver, so everything is covered, right? So for the gold and standard silver holdings, there's a proof of reserve option here. Now, the interesting thing here earlier, this button, when I clicked on it, wouldn't work. But it is this time because I had to reboot my computer. Thank you. So there's the proof of reserves. It talks about what's going on, right? And here you can see various listed reserves that they've put onto the blockchain. And you can actually check these weights. Now, I went and checked it. This hasn't been, this particular link here, when I checked it, actually shows up as nearly 3 years old. So that was a bit of fun. So I am going to have a bit of a chat with Ainsley, and I'm going to talk to them about how this all works properly and how that you can redeem it. All right. And we do have, here's me on checking on a transaction for a CoinSpot wallet. So, and that is the result. We can see that there's some assets in the CoinSpot wallet. But see, that's CoinSpot's wallet on that main asset chain, not the actual wallet of not the whole chain. So I need to look that up later, but I ran out of time at this stage for you. But they go into saying there, right, what they have and how you can purchase it. So you can see purchasing here of a token, right, is there is Maharaba, which is a DeFi platform with ethical and halal financial principles. Interesting. Halal? Okay. And there's actually also a wallet relative to that, which I'll get into in a minute as well. You can also go buy them on CoinSpot, which is CoinSpot Australia. And I can click on that, and now that link will probably work. But I already have it open, so I'm not going to worry about that. All right. And you can also go directly and purchase over the counter at their offices. Now, you can, once you have those tokens and you've bought them, you've got the ability to redeem them for proper bullion, which is one of the things that comes up here quite significantly. So you can contact Ainsley via your phone or email or by visiting their store. Transfer the tokens, and the tokens are AUS for gold and AGS for silver tokens to Ainsley, and they have token addresses down below, which I'll go on about in a minute. Then lock in the redemption. Now, this is the part I do want to chat with them. There's a $250 fee to lock in the redemption for all the costs and the bits and pieces going through that. I need to find out whether that fee is a once-off payable fee, or if you were to transfer, say, $1,000 worth of silver tokens, and then in 2 weeks' time you transfer another, would you cop the same fee? So there's a little bit of interest that I need to find out from them. I'm hopefully going to get them on and walk us through this process of redemption. All right, choose your bars. Ainsley chooses the bar, takes delivery of your bullion bars. So they go out and purchase for that token the bullion, and they put it, either send it to you or they will put it in their safes so that you can have a place where it's being kept. All right. So we will go through that whole process on how that's done. I'm going to try and get Ainsley on during the week, which will be a pre-recorded interview, and we'll see if we can get them to explain how that section actually works. And here, of course, is the two contract addresses on the Ethereum chain, unfortunately. But here are the two contact addresses that you can send your bullion through. Now, put me back on the screen for a second. So that means, of course, we can buy tokenized gold or bullion at any time and have those tokens held in our wallet. Is that an option? Is that something that we could do? Right? Understanding that if we do purchase those tokens, how do we hold on to those tokens? And that was where, not on this page, I've got to try and find the relevant page now. Security stored and verified, maybe. Not that one. Gold and silver. Let me go back to that front page and just do a quick look at. There is a wallet that can be used for this, and I was just trying to, I had it on a page and I'm trying to find it now where that was. So just excuse me for a second. I've lost it. I can't believe I lost that. Unbelievable. Okay. I should have had that open as a separate page. My bad. But anyway, so effectively there's two types of wallets. There's one that's a halal wallet, and specifically will accept the tokens from this. It looks like it's done by an Arab type country, but effectively it's legit. It works. The wallet checks out. The company checks out. So in that respect, it's actually fairly okay. Is it MRB home? Yes, it is. Actually, I've got it here. Add back to the stage and put me back in the corner. So this is the actual wallet that you could use where you could purchase. It's a trusted 3-web ecosystem, and you could put it up and you can click your Shahal wallet setup guide, takes you through the steps, right, and allows you to then store your crypto on this web wallet, which means you own the keys, both the public and private keys. It's not held by somewhere else. I'm going to show you how we can purchase some tokens tonight, but in doing so, I'm going to let you also understand that these tokens will have to live where I've purchased them, because I don't have a wallet at the moment unless I decide to do this with a wallet that can hold those tokens. So that is one thing you have to be aware of. All right, but that goes through there. That one I did not put in our links below, but if you wish to, you can get that from the Ainsley Golden Standard site here. You'll be able to find that link there. It's actually this one here, the default platform, how to buy it. Okay, so we'll just remove that, come back in here and jump across to there. What do we got? Vince, where is Mark? I guess he's busy. He's having family time, you know, holiday. Some of us old folks, all our family are growing up and they just ignore us. So we get more time to do ourselves, as my son's looking over at me and laughing. But effectively, he is still a young dad, and so with a nice, lovely wife, who, if I brought him on tonight, would have killed him. So he couldn't come on tonight. But he says he'll be back next week, hopefully. But yeah, so that's where Mark is at this stage. What's this one? What you got here? Throw away money for reserve strippers. Really? And Peter Grace sitting there saying that keep an eye on Veritasium. So you're testing my ability to speak there, Pete. Yeah, we might see if we get a chance to jump in and have a look at Veritasium a little bit later. But I did want to go through this option about purchasing tokens and how we can do that. So let me go back here, bring this back up and put me back down in the bottom corner. All right, so one of the options where you can do this is you can actually go and buy this on CoinSpot. So if you click on this link here, it will open up into CoinSpot or ask you to sign in. If you do not have a CoinSpot account, feel free to use the referral link below that I have there and sign in, and I'll get a little bit of Bitcoin for that. So $10 worth, which at today's current prices is actually doing okay. So effectively, you can go to there and go to CoinSpot. So we'll just open up CoinSpot here. Right, so I've landed on my wallets here. I've put a bit of money in just so that I could show how I can do that. You can see up here what I have. I do not hold a lot of my crypto on CoinSpot because it is there in their wallets. If they got hacked, I would be at liability of losing those. So I would always shift my purchases where I can back over into my own wallets. So I hold a small amount of various things on here, and I will shift them when I think it's valid to shift it. But in this case, you get a bit of a view of what I have, which is not much. So don't follow me on my don't follow me on what I purchase or whatever. That's not good advice, considering how well I've done in crypto. I did enough to actually pay for a big trip around for me and Carl at one stage. So, but at this stage of the game, I have very little crypto left, but just letting you know. But on here, you can see that we have an AG standard and an AG gold standard. These are two wallets. Now, the only reason they are showing up here is because I did a little test run earlier to see how that went. But if you need to, you can come into here, go into search wallets, and if you type gold, you can see it comes up with the gold standard, AUS. Now, on our site that we looked at from Ainsley Bullion, they told us that this was the ticker, AUS. They also told us that the ticker for silver, so if I type in silver, is AGS. So those are the two tickers that they agree with or follow. So that's the correct blockchain to be on for starters. Now, in here, you've got the ability to purchase those either by gold or silver. I had a hard time finding it, to be honest. I clicked on here, how do I find it? And it wasn't until I actually copied a link that I found down below, not in here, but down on the Ainsley site, that it took me to a thing called bundled. So I went, oh, that's interesting. So I went CoinSpot bundles, right? And in here, you can see they have bundles that you can purchase through their system. In particular, the gold-silver ratio bundle, which was a link that was taken to by the Ainsley Bullion. And in here is where you can purchase a bundle. Now, the way this bundle works, it actually goes down and explains how it's working, and it's using the gold to silver ratio. And it's saying, okay, how much gold do you want to buy? How much silver is it going to buy? And it's going to determine depending on where that ratio sits. Remember that at one stage that ratio was 80-20, and then it went down to 54, and then down to 45, and now it's come back up a bit. So it does it judging on those ratios. But in here, you can choose to buy that. So I'm going to purchase some tokens of using their ratio calculator. They're doing it. I'm just putting in the amount. So they're going to actually do the ratio for me. So if I put in $50, right, you can see it's going to give me a ratio of gold. I'm going to get 0.093 of a gram of gold. Whoopee! Or a tokenized gram of gold, I should say. And 7.72 tokenized grams of silver. And of course, it's going to cost me to buy that. There's going to be a fee that comes along with that. So if I click on that, it tells me it's going to cost me 50 cents for my $50. And it says I can see the coin breakdown there. And then I confirm I can buy it. So now I actually own gold. Holy crap. I actually owned a little bit of gold before this. But still, right? So if I go back to my wallets, right, and you can see it's increased. Now, you notice I've got no increase in prices, unlike the cryptos that are going up and down like a bloody yo-yo. This is following the market price. So it's stuck all over the weekend. So whatever the price was, whatever I buy it for right now is the price that it's going to be until the market changes. Excuse me, I'll just take care of my throat. Now, if I wanted to buy just silver, for instance, I'll go back in here and I'll type in silver. That's the one. And I can go and open my AGS wallet. So if I click that, here I am now in the wallet, right? I can see my wallet. I can send, receive, transactions, etc. And I can choose to buy, sell, swap, or go to a graph on that. So let's just say that I want to buy. So I would click buy. And it takes me to the Ainsley Bullion buy one. And here I might spend another, well, the way silver's been going at the moment, let's say I spend another $90. All right. And then I buy that. Note there is a large difference between the buy and sell prices for this coin spread. By clicking confirm, you acknowledge and understand this acceptance. Wow. Really? Okay, let's just cancel that. Let's go show chart. Advanced charts. Let's have a look. It doesn't show me the actual, unfortunately, that's where it's at the moment. 3.84 grams, 88 lowest. Market cap is fairly high. Interesting. All right, well, I would go and invest that on TradingView, but I'll come back to that later. But right now, I'm still going to go ahead for this example. Change that back up to 90. And then I'm going to buy. Yeah, I confirm. Right, and I can go back to my wallet. So now you see I have 32.18 AGSs, and it says there I've lost 1% in approximate change. I don't know how that happens, but it's a tokenized market, so it should be not losing anything. If we go back to our wallets on the front, do the same thing for gold. Oh, it's gone up. Interesting. Okay, so there must be a market opening somewhere. Something's happening. Anyway, so let's go open our AUS wallet, buy some, and maximum buy 50,000. I wish. I'm going to put $50 in there and buy that, confirm, and done. So now in my wallets, I have silver tokens and some gold tokens. Now, through here, I could go to here and I could say I want to send those, and I can go and grab our stuff from, where are we? Redeeming our tokens, not there. Redemption. Where was it? Look at that. I've lost it already. Find those token that where I had those tokens, you saw me point them out before. If I find that address, I could then go in and put the address in here and send that off. But I'm not going to do any of that at this stage until we can actually have a chat with Ainsley and work out exactly how that works. I mean, if it's going to cost me $250 to set it up and I'd only just spent $200, that's not really worth it. But I do have the advantage of being able to resell these tokens if the price goes back up. So if silver prices go up through the week, I might determine that I want to take this money out. The same with gold. If the gold goes in, I might want to take this out. All right, my 0.3 of a gram of gold that's worth $214. So effectively, these are tokenized assets. Well, they are real world assets, right? Real world assets that I can use because I trust the company, right? I trust Ainsley. So therefore, I'm happy to transfer to Ainsley if I want to untokenize these and take the real thing. One of the traps that might be if silver becomes an issue on actually having enough silver to cover the assets on the chain, that would make life exceptionally interesting. I'm not sure how that would work. So anyway, so that's my little rant on real world assets and how they work and what has been done and what to watch out for, not naming QSI in particular, just because I did. Always, no matter what you do, if you're going to tokenize an asset, you have to confirm the asset is owned by who owns it. Right now with Ondo, that's a big and heavy task. Right, if you go through the Ondo website and have a look at what they want and how you can confirm things, you've just got to do really deep research if you're going to look into real world asset type stuff. Okay, so with that, I think I'm done for the day. Just want to mention, of course, please do not forget that we have through the Voice of Freedom, and FBN is also promoting it, the Donkey Sanctuary Lottery on merch.vofhq.com. Right, to help there, that lottery goes and helping paying for some of FBN and the VOF website's costs. It also goes, a significant amount has been going to the Donkey Sanctuary at late because they are really struggling. So they get definitely a minimum amount of whatever profits are left over after the prizes have come out. So please go to merch, VOFHQ, look at the Donkey Sanctuary Lottery and purchase there if you can. It all goes to a good cause, a genuine, bona fide, non-for-profit organisation, the Donkey Sanctuary, so please check on them. Also, shout out to Ainsley for giving us the ability to do this. As I said, I'll see if I can get a hold of someone from Ainsley and have a bit of a chat about exactly how we would shift these tokens and how we would turn them into real gold or real silver. And if we can do that and record it live, then hopefully we can show that to you guys for next week. So with any luck, all things will work. I'm just reading now, sort of comment on the screen. You know, that's the trouble when you're trying to fly 3 screens and whatever. I did leave that up for a while, covering my face, but I figured the comment was better looking than my face, so that worked. Okay, so do you guys have any questions at the moment? What this says not my cuppa. So you know, it means I've probably lost a viewer. That's okay. With that, hopefully you guys all enjoyed that about real world assets, what to watch out for. There's a lot of things in there, but please be really cautious when choosing to do so. I mean, if you're looking at tokenized gold or silver, then CoinSpot's the way to go, because at least you can guarantee you can get it back out by transferring it over to Ainsley, and it will be each token is guaranteed by them. So with that, I'm going to probably wrap it up for tonight. We should be back next week. Everything going well, we'll be back onto a regular schedule now that everyone's got through family holidays and Christmas. And with any luck, we hope that this year is going to be better for all of us, maybe worse for the government, but better for all of us moving forward, with the cryptocurrencies going up and starting to hit the highs we expected. And also with gold and silver currently doing what they're doing at the moment, which is fabulous as far as I'm concerned. It's been going great guns for me. I believe Mark has been doing even more. Oh, yeah, good point. If you're an XRP person, buy XRP according to King Duck, because at the moment the prices are, let's actually just do that. Let's have a quick looky at, let me go back to that page and flip that up. All right, so there's the prices currently at the moment. We can see that things are going up. So XRP is at $2.08, which is a bit of a bargain. It was actually down at $1.98 US at one stage. I saw that. So that would have been good to buy it at that point. But yep, XRP is on the move up. Right, it's number 4 behind Tether now, so which is great. And if you're purchasing, remember, try and stay in the top ones at this stage of the game. Solidify your investments in the coins that have been around for a while, that have active projects in it. Of course, Bitcoin being the one that doesn't have many active projects because it's a store of value. But yeah, check that out. What was this comment here? It will be the worst this year, I bet. Oh, I hope not, mate. I hope not. So if you're in there, by all means, go buy some XRP. I mean, if you do, maybe Mark will come back. He loves his XRP. But with that, I'm going to leave it with you guys. Have a great night. Enjoy. As I said, try and do something for these guys here. All right. Remove that. Cryptocurrency lottery, that would be great if you could do that. Let me remove the comment. All right. For the donkeys, God love the donkeys. Well, all things considered, notice that we are still supporting Charlie Kirk in the top corner. I'm planning to try and keep that there for a year for somebody who stood out and wanted to discuss things with people and bring about things that will help. So from me, I'm going to go back to assets over here and unclick that asset. All I got to say is good night from Coin Toss from this episode. I hope you all do well. Have a great year this time round. And above all, keep the faith. So from me, cheers.